What I wanted to do today is as we talk about your story and my story, is I wanted us to hear one of our village folks, their story. I met Howard Brown a couple of years ago. In fact, Ray was planning to lead our young people and take them out to take clothes to the homeless in Atlanta. And Howard Brown, that's my first memory of Howard being with the group. He might have been there before, but I remembered him that night because Ray came back to my house and said, we would not have known what to do had Howard not been there. He said he's got leadership skills. He knew how to talk to people. Dad, there's something really special about him. So from time to time, I would see Howard at church, but I really didn't see him all the time until we moved up to Hapeville. And a year ago, he and Paige became two of mine and Jane's absolute best friends in the world. We began to hang together a lot. You maybe didn't know him well until we started the building program on this place. When we started the building program here, it was Howard's loud voice that rallied the troops. Sometimes we wanted to hit him in the head. Sometimes we wanted to put some insulation in his mouth. But he kept everybody going with his optimism, his enthusiasm, and this belief that the building was going to get done and we were going to go into God's glory. We all fell in love with Howard. Well, you don't know his story, and his story is one of the most compelling stories I have ever heard. And so I want him to tell his story to the village church for the very first time. You're going to be thrilled when you hear it. Would you give a warm round of applause to our own Howard Brown?
Good morning. Figured that would be appropriate since most people know me as loud and obnoxious. The song in the first service, I didn't say this, but the song that they were saying, singing "You Are Amazing God," for me, it's so true because, as you'll see, where I come from, there was only one that could take me out of the life I was caught up in. There was only one that could save me. So for me, you are amazing God. Today we'll become more close. We'll be like friends. I'm about to share with you guys my whole story. So as we walk and pass for the rest of our lives, you'll feel a part of me and I'll feel a part of you because I've shared things with you that a lot of people don't even know. My life started as my mother, she was told for years she would never have a kid. And of course, as a woman, you want a child. You want something to be proud of. And it was until 27 when my mom met my dad. And soon after they got married, my mom was pregnant. And for her, the greatest gift was coming that she was going to have a child. So my mom was proud, and the proudest thing in the world was her son. She was so proud of him. She was going to do everything in her power to raise him right, and, you know, he was going to be a role model in society. My dad was from California, so as my mom and dad got, you know, maybe a little stronger in the relationship, what have you, she seen my dad would go away. He would go to California. He would go to other states. He wouldn't stay with her. She didn't understand it all, but my mom was loving, and she just wanted to stay with him no matter what. That's what she believed, and she always raised us in church. When I was just a small baby, 10 months old, my mom tells me of a story. My dad went on a rampage and goes shooting up my grandfather's house. My granddaddy was holding me, and the bullet just barely missed me. Almost taken out of this world at 10 months. Also, as I was 4 or 5 years old, my mom and dad, they fought a lot. I remember that they were always fighting. Didn't really understand it, but when they were around each other, they were fighting. And they got into a horrible fight one day, and my mama, she's trying to get my dad to stop. He's drinking. He's on a deep end rampage, and my dad takes and throws my mama on top of me, and my collarbone is shattered. Well, my dad jerks me up and says, "Son, you're going to be fine. Just shake it off." And my mom's like, "We got to take him to the hospital." My dad won't let her. So my dad finally passes out drunk, and my mom takes me to the hospital. And they tell her, "We're going to take your son from you." So my mom fights through all that. She gets to keep me. And maybe you guys have families, pictures of you at beaches, family pictures, nice, good portraits. For me, I have pictures like visiting my dad in prison and didn't really have a family that I would know. But one thing I did have is when my dad wasn't in prison, we would spend time together. And he painted this picture of a lavish life. He painted a picture of, you know, lots of money, and who knows what he had. But I know when I was around him, I got what I wanted no matter what it was. And when he lived here in Atlanta, he didn't live with my mom. He lived in a high rise in Atlanta. So it was always, I want to go to my daddy's because I was raised in the projects. My mom, she couldn't afford nothing better. My dad didn't give her money. My dad didn't help her at all. He had money, but she had nothing. So you guys know what it's like to be raised in the projects, having a fight coming home from school. You just want to stay in your house. But my mom kept me in church. She stayed grounded to church. Well, my mom decided, it was time to get a divorce from my dad. It wasn't the thing to do. Well, the church at the time told her, you got to go. If you're going to get a divorce, you can't be here. And I remember that. But in 1992, my father, he was somewhere in California. Somebody come up behind him, and the story kind of goes like they came at him with a hammer. My dad turns and gets the hammer from the guy somehow, and through a fight, the guy ends up dead. My dad ends up going to San Quentin for 6 months for involuntary manslaughter. 4 days after his release, he was found dead out back of his house in Santa Barbara, California. He had carvings in his chest. He was stripped naked. They basically had labeled him. The autopsy said blunt force trauma to the head and an overdose of opium laced with cocaine. After that, I went to California to meet a family I never known. Well, shortly off the plane, we go to this mansion, this houses. They had more money than anything I had ever seen. And it was nice to me as a kid. You're like, wow, how do you get this? I'm raised in a one-bedroom project apartment. We ain't even got food on the table. But my dad, he had all this stuff that I never knew about, and my mom really never knew about. But as we go to the family reunion, everybody goes in limos. And so at first I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. But then when we get there, there's at the time I didn't know who they were, but they were my cousins. There was a big pavilion. It was 765 family members at the family reunion. But at each corner was people posted with high-powered rifles. And I'm scared to death. I'm just 12 years old. I called my mom, and I said, Mom, you have got to get me out of this place. And my grandmother snatches the phone. They lock me in a room. They won't let me talk to my mom no more. They make me sit in this room until it's time for me to go home, and my plane ticket comes. And my mom, when I get home, my mom, she's meeting me there, and I never forget it. My favorite meal at the time was scalloped potatoes, and my mom had me a big bowl of scalloped potatoes and cheese ready when I got home. But they told me don't say nothing. So when I got home, I just kind of let it go. I told Mom I was just a kid. I was immature. I didn't know what was going on. So I just let it go. I never really led into it, and I kind of left them behind me. I still do associate with them, but, it's a life I don't want to live. At 15 years old, I'm grown now. I'm a man. I know what's going on in life. I tell Mom, I'm not going to church with you no more. My mom, I remember sometimes she would lead the choir, and maybe somebody would come, could sing a little bit better, and they'd say, Pam, we need you to step off to the side. And my mama would be crushed. So for me, church, I didn't like it. I seen my mom, who had a great heart, huge heart, they would hurt her. So I said, I'm not doing the church thing. Well, then, so I leave church. I leave what my mom had grounded me in, and now I start partying on the weekends. I start drinking. I was in car shows, and I was big into car clubs, but, as a teenager, you ain't got no money, so I didn't really have nothing to be proud of. But I was fighting on the weekends. I was partying. I had friends. Some of my friends are here today that I used to party with, and it's blowed their mind that I have completely changed my life. So I ended up graduating high school, and at the time that I graduated, I wanted to go to college. For me, I was always in sports, and I had dreamed of going to college. At the time, my girlfriend, I found out was pregnant, so I had to make a decision if I'm going to do schooling or I'm going to stay home and take care of family. I ended up getting married. I chose to stay home and take care of my family. I got a job with a painting company called Duron Paints. Maybe you guys know it. I moved up really fast in the company. I was an assistant manager. I met a paint contractor from El Salvador. And Spanish people in today's society, they feel like if they have an American on their team, they can make it anywhere. So he said, hey, man, I need you to come with me. I love your charisma. I love your attitude. You can do it. I said, man, I know nothing about painting a house. I couldn't tell you one hill of beans how to do it. He said, come with me. I'm going to teach you everything. So I go with him, and everything's going good. He decides to go to El Salvador. He's got a lot of land over there, and he's going to build a hotel, and he's going to whatever. I don't know what he was going to do. But anyways, for about a month, we got our checks. Well, after that, checks stopped coming. We were still working. There was no checks. So I told the painters, and I talked with my mom and wife at the time, and I said, I'm just going to start my own company. So I went out and I started my own company. In a short time period, I had 26 painters. I was making tons of money. I remember on several Fridays, I would go pick up $30,000 and $40,000, and my mom would say, son, just give me once a month, just give me those checks and let me put it up for you. Mama, you don't know. I know how to run my business.